Ba, 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 da. Time to
Good
be
evening.
quiet. Good evening.
Hey,
Good
Ryan, how you
evening.
doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm
How are
doing
you?
pretty good.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Still feeling a little full from dinner. Not gonna lie.
No, well, it happens. Eating the wings will make you full.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
They'll definitely do that. They'll make you full, especially when you get there when they're actually 80 some odd cents a wing instead of like after 8 o'clock.
Oh yeah. So that is prime time. Getting that wing night is always a good thing. It is. It's before 8. I
Yeah,
didn't know that. That's
it
interesting.
looked like it was from five. I think I saw somewhere so like between 5 and 7 is when they said it was. I was like, hey, that works.
Okay. Well, we know how to time it now.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
So yeah, if
Ah.
we doing wing night, just let me know and I'll leave the house a little bit earlier than normal. So that's
Probably
for you too, people.
probably next month maybe.
Yeah, well, not every week.
Okay, no.
I'm on my diet. I'm on my diet again, people, doing the calorie count thing again. So
I've got to get a diet. I really should.
hey, it's all good. You can, like I said, I use an app, my fitness app. It helps me. It helped me the first time, and it's helping me again. So,
I think actually, you know what? Oddly enough, I was doing my rounds this morning since I'm going into the office 3 days a week right now, and one of the new things I do is I walk around the office, checking conference rooms and things like that. And first few times it was really rough walking up the stairs in the office.
okay.
Today, not so much. So it's progress. It's slow, but it's progress.
Any little bit forward is always a good bit forward. So,
True.
yeah, it's always good.
Working on drinking more water and all that other fun jazz. So
Water,
yay.
people, water. So,
But yeah. So hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 125 of Scuba and The RY, your weekly dose of entertainment, movies, and just general shenanigans of life.
whatever we talk about, it is here for you, for your pleasures.
Yeah. So hey, yeah. Last week went really well. Episode was up on all of your podcast references for audio as well as on the YouTube channel. So able to get through that. So it's like, yeah, we're just keep on rolling.
Yeah, it works. Every platform that you listen or watch, check us out.
And there are some more. Like I could say that we just were added to iHeartRadio, Samsung, a couple other places, but those were two of the big ones. We're on the Amazon devices. We're on Apple. We're on Google. We're on Spotify. I mean, any place you can consume podcast, we are getting there, and so you can check that out. But yeah, Rye's looking it up on iHeart right now. He's gonna try and make me a liar.
No, I always just want to find it. So
Yep, there it is. There it is. I see it.
there we go. It is. I use Spotify, so I was always curious. So
Yeah, I was exploring because one of my friends was trying to convince me to change the podcast hosting
okay.
from what we currently have to another service. So I went and I checked this other service and had them pull over the first 2 episodes, or
Okay.
the latest 2 episodes, which is really kind of embarrassing when I think about it, because it was last week's podcast and the before that was like uploaded March of 2021. So obviously I'm a little behind in the backlog, in the archive, so to speak.
It's all right.
That's okay. All that stuff's on YouTube. We'll get it onto there eventually. But the comparison was the fact I'm up for renewal for the show, for the hosting. And it was like, try to, doing the price shopping. And it's weird how you spend X amount of money on some of this digital footprint, whether it's the website, the domain, the podcast hosting, all that stuff. And then you go to try to price shop with others, and it's like, it's the same price ish, but it's like, what really weighing, what do I want? What's my trade-off?
What's the best deal, bang for your buck?
Well, right now what I've got is I've got unlimited upload size and upload. I could do 30 episodes at a time with my current hosting, no restriction on size of the recording. You can even do audio and video. This other site I was looking at, they let you have like different tiers. You could have the, okay, 3 hours a month, 6 hours a month, or 12 hours a month.
Okay.
Their free account gives you 2 hours, but it only holds it for 90 days and then they automatically delete it.
Oh.
But the other three, it's like, okay, but the kicker is each additional hour is a fee. Now, if you go the top tier, which is 12 hours a month, you'll pay $3 an hour for each additional hour of content you upload to their site. The middle tier is like $4, the low tier is like $5 on top of those times. Now think about it. Now we're a fairly regular show. We have been for several years. And so we would be doing like 4 hours minimum a month.
Yep, 4 hours,
So
give or take.
theoretically, that first tier, gone. Not even touching it. Then it brings us to the middle tier. And with the middle tier, it's like, okay, 6 hours a month and all that. And of course, what my friend is trying to sell me on is he wants to help with the podcast stuff.
Okay.
The uploading the site, which I appreciate. I love, I was a volunteer for a while on some things, so I'm never going to turn down volunteers. If you're smart, you never turn down volunteers.
Never, especially people
the
that want to
volunteers
help.
getting experience for whatever it is they're helping with. And then you're able to get some experience too managing volunteers, because managing employees is one thing, managing volunteers is a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah, it's a different ball game. You're playing in the major leagues, and then you're playing in the major leagues with a twist.
Yes, definitely a twist. And I've done a lot of Boy Scout unit work where I was like an assistant, where I was in the leadership of different scout units, and that's all volunteers.
Yeah.
It's like they've got, the only thing they are investing is their time and what's best for their kids.
Yeah.
So you got to learn how to manage people when you're managing like that. So if you have the opportunity to work with volunteers. They're great people overall. But anyway, so he wants to volunteer and help with that. So I'm like, okay, cool. You want to volunteer and help? That's great. The thing is, I have this huge backlog of episodes, and the problem is not uploading the episode. The problem is the editing side, because the editing workflow I was using was very clunky and cumbersome. Thankfully, DaVinci Resolve, which is the program I use for editing the video, came out with a new version, Resolve 18, and it allows me to do more record more options for rendering. So now I can cut out a full third of my workflow in the new DaVinci Resolve.
That's always a good thing.
Yeah, last week was proof positive on that. I got to upload and everything. Granted, if you make a quality video, make sure your upload and download speeds are good, because it took, I kid you not, Rye, almost 14 hours for the video version of the podcast last week to upload to YouTube.
Yeah, that's pretty long.
It is, but it's kind of my own thing, because when you get into video editing or whatever, and I'd shout out to a YouTuber named Casey Ferris. He does DaVinci Resolve training, so you go check him out. But one of the tips I got from him is when I go to do the render for the video, to adjust the bit rate, because normally they'll default like 10,000 kilobits a second. I bump it up to 50 or 60,000. Now, this does two things. A, yes, it makes the file when you're done huge. However, you get a much better quality video.
That's what matters.
Because it's not trying to shove it like a sardine in a can. It's gives it room. So I noticed that. Now, we're not shooting in 4K, people. We're not.
No, 4K over here.
Version, I'm not at that 4K
Can you see
level.
Me? Can you see me?
I'm knocking on the whole 1080p and all of that. So I've got decent, but not really high quality. But here's the thing I noticed. Some of my shorter videos I've done where I had that larger bit rate, when I upload to YouTube, YouTube thinks it's a 4K resolution. I'm like, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's not exactly what I was going for. But okay. Not to mention, if you use the free version of DaVinci Resolve, you can't render in 4K, that's you have to buy the paid version.
Okay.
Which, you know, if that's what you're working, then yeah, if you got the cameras to support it, then do it. I don't have the. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, not quite there yet, but we'll get there.
But so bring that back around. He wants to help out with the back end on the site, and he knows how to use this service versus the service I currently use.
Okay.
So I can add him as a contributor. It's like, all right, cool. Well, here's the thing. I have I think the last podcast episode uploaded on my current hosting is episode 81. We're at episode 125, or 124. So that's almost 80 episodes, and that's not counting some of the other D&D game content that I have recorded that still needs to get edited and rendered to try to upload.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, in my current hosting, I can upload that stuff in a couple of months and it's all there. No extra cost to me. But if I switch over to this new site, then I have to pay for each additional hour. And I tell you, when the podcast is roughly an hour long, we're talking 80 episodes of that. That's 80 hours of content. And then at least 10 episodes of D&D game, and those games are 3 hours each.
Yeah, those are pretty long.
There's another 30. So now we're at ballpark 120, roughly 120 hours of content. Yeah, you do the math.
Yeah, that's not kosher.
Especially when it's like, okay, I have 120 hours worth of content, and it's going to cost me $3 an hour to no.
Yeah.
Now, the nice thing is if I do switch to another service, they will migrate all of my existing content up to the service
That's
at
a
no
plus.
extra cost to me. Fingers crossed. So we'll see how that goes. The renewal is coming up, and that's just some of the things, back end stuff for content creators.
Yeah.
But anyways. So yeah, we got a few things to talk about. Definitely heavy on the review side because we've been chewing up some great movies and stuff to talk about.
Yes, sir.
And of course some odds and ends and some news stories. So, stick around, hang out with us. This is, as you're kind of getting, this is a free form podcast, so we'll just kind of roll with it.
Roll and
see
dice.
How the conversation goes.
Throw it out there, people.
Before we get too much further, let's take a moment to thank one of our oldest contributors, and that is Sirenscape.
Thank you.
Go to sirenscape.com to check out their web player and online library of soundboards and background music. These are great for your tabletop experience. We have a history with tabletop and playing board games. So this is just something you can play in the background to really immerse your players. And especially with the COVID environment and people playing games virtually and not in the same space, hey, Sirenscape's got options for that. So go check them out, sirenscape.com. Great things. You'll hear some backgrounds for us. I've got a playlist that I put together for the podcast. Been using them for years. Absolutely wonderful people. So yeah, check out sirenscape.com.
Check them out, people.
Oh yeah. And if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to, do the thing. The thing up there.
Thing. Up there, people.
Yep. Do that.
Subscribe.
Yes.
And like us.
And if you're listening to us audio, please give us a like, give us a review, tell us what you think. All that fun stuff. So, shall we dive right in since we got so many reviews to get through?
Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and just go and do our thing.
All right.
What's on deck first?
What's on deck first?
What are we diving into?
We're going to start with a movie called Easter Sunday by Joe Coy. This came out in theater. Is this a theater release or is it where
Theater release.
Theater release?
Yeah, wide release.
Easter Sunday, Family So Familiar, Filipino edition.
That is my tagline for this review.
I haven't seen it. Rye, you say you saw it. It is up on ryreviews.com for the full review, but to kind of give us a feeling is like, Rye, do I want to go watch this movie?
Do you want to go watch this movie? I would say it's up to you. But if you want to know my opinion, so-so. Mixed bag.
So-so.
Mixed bag.
Okay.
And the reason is that as you mentioned, this film stars Joe Coy. If anybody's familiar with Joe Coy, he's a famous Filipino comedian out there, does a lot of stand-up. He is actually my favorite stand-up comedian. I've seen him 3 times, laughed my butt off 3 times, and going into this movie, there's a twofold approach. Not only, hey, hopefully it'll be a funny comedy, family thing, family slapstick kind of comedy, but also one thing is that it's propelling to the mainstream the Filipino culture and Filipino American culture. So that's one of the big zeitgeists in this film and one of the strong points in this film. So the central point of this is that Joe Coy plays a character by Joe Valencia, and he's a struggling actor. He's about to hopefully hit it big, and then he has to go home for Easter Sunday, hence the title of the movie. And he travels back with his son, he's having issues having that father-son dynamic struggles. And they go home, and then shenanigans happen. The strongest point of this film is the family dynamic, because not only, as I mentioned, it does a twofold approach. The strongest point is that highlighting family, it does a great job of highlighting not just family, but also the cultural aspect of the Filipino heritage, as well as how family is. But he does it with a comedic twist. And the comedy, when it's focused on the family, focused on the dynamic struggles that he's dealing with at home and with his career, it's great. You know, it's fun. It does great.
Watch out, we're about to be invaded.
Invaded by the Cuts.
No, Phoebe, you don't get to hang out.
But anyways, that's where the fun ends and disaster begins. Being that it is a family comedy and being that he is a stand-up comedian, you would expect a certain degree of laughter. You don't get that here outside of the typical stuff that he does with family-oriented stuff. So when it comes to everything else that happens in the film, it just becomes very much a familiarity of cheesy one-liners, unexpected cameos, and just cliches that you find in any kind of like slapstick style comedy. And I'm not going to say it's bad, because it's not. Humor is very subjective, and if you like cheesy stuff, you can probably get it. But for me, it takes away from that family dynamic and the human aspect of what he was going with when it focused on the family.
Yeah. So what you're saying? So it sounds like what you're saying is this is one of those they went a little overboard trying to make a joke.
Yeah, there are parts in the film where it's just mind-numbing and just cringing that they try to force things, and it's just like, you don't have to do that because you already had something good in the pot. No pun intended. But it does eventually, it comes back, it focuses on the family by the end once they have Easter dinner and some of the shenanigans there, and it does kind of wrap up on a good heartfelt note, but there's a lot of just mixed bag feelings through most of it.
So this comes down to be, according to your review, a 2.5 out of 5.
Yep.
Meaning this would be a great Friday night rental if there was still video store.
Yep, Friday night rental. So that means, rent it on Prime or something. Go to the theaters if you want to see it. If you want to, it could be for you, but just keep it at home. I would say keep it at home.
All right, and that works. That works. All right, our next one we're going to talk about is Bullet Train.
Bullet Train.
Brad Pitt film.
Yes, sir.
I'm so hyped for this one. I didn't get the chance to watch it yet. I do want to go check it out. But Rye, you checked it out. Is this as crazy and chaotic as the trailer suggests?
Crazy and chaotic, spontaneous, amazing. Well, yes and no. So,
Okay.
at the center of this is Brad Pitt. He plays a character. He goes by the code name of Ladybug. That's already the tip of the iceberg of the insanity that ensues. So basically what happens is he is tasked on a grab and go mission. He has to grab a briefcase, which becomes the MacGuffin for this film, on this bullet train that goes from Tokyo to Kyoto. So he has to go in, get the briefcase, and get off. Doesn't go as planned, because what he finds out is that on this train there's a plethora of other assassins, not to mention the Japanese mob that is focused on getting this briefcase as well. So it gets in this entangled web of shenanigans and craziness that shows off with the uniqueness of the concept. And what I call this concept is in this concept, what I call is frenetic storytelling. And a good example of frenetic storytelling is Snatch. It's a Guy Ritchie film. And it does what you do in frenetic storytelling is that you have all these loose ends and unexpected like interactions, and you feel like there is plot holes, but the unexpectedness is built on purpose. Because
it with Snatch, when you get to the end, it connects all the dots.
Connects all the dots.
And you're like, huh.
Yeah, and this film does the same thing. It creates unique situations, sometimes comical, depending on who the cast of characters are interacting with who, mixed in with some over-the-top action that strikes a balance between the cliche elements and the freneticism of the journey. So throughout the film, you're getting this like overall excitement, not always from the action, but sometimes just from conversation and kind of like wittiness that they build on like social dynamic, family feuds, past, and it all comes together in this craziness on one train. It all takes place on the train, and it's just crazy what happens.
So, I mean, judging from the picture here, we've got quite the ensemble of characters.
Yes.
Now, how do they all play into each other on this?
They all play into each other by, I'm not going to spoil it, being that they all have a connection to that briefcase. And what is in that briefcase, and what is the purpose of that briefcase. So all of them are assassins. All of them have been hired, tasked, or set on a mission that ties back to that briefcase. So the briefcase gets on there because of a group of assassins. I'll name them. It's called the Twins, who are played by Aaron Taylor Johnson and David Tyree. They're the twins, and they're the reason that the briefcase is on the train, because they have to do a certain mission. And Brad Pitt, as character, just kind of just to add a little funniness, it's not even his mission. He only goes on this mission because the person that was supposed to be on it took a day off. So he kind of had to he was hired by proxy to do this. And with his dynamic,
wasn't he also like? Isn't it also kind of one of the things he's come into this like he's been out of the game for a while?
Yeah, he's been out of the game,
been dealing with a lot of like mental health, and he's like, I don't really know if I want to be an assassin anymore. I'm now going to be a kindler, gentler assassin.
Yeah, that's a red herring from the trailer, because what they show that in the trailer is a red herring from actually what is, and I'm not going to spoil it, because what you find out, what happens, kind of adds to the credence of the craziness.
Okay.
All I can say is that he has this very like zen-like approach to everything, but he has bad luck. So when he's trying not to kill somebody, they end up getting killed. So it's kind of funny. But once you head into the third act, that's when the craziness just explodes, and you get all this insanity mixed in with a little bit of convolutedness, but it's not hard to follow. But it can be if you can't figure out all the plethora of subplots, but it all comes together in a unique fashion and does end on a very comical note. And I would say stay past the credits, not end the credits, but through the first few minutes, because it adds a little more funniness to how the climax ends in this film.
So you got a mid roll.
Yeah, mid roll. So it's like a extra that adds to it, which is kind of funny.
Okay, definitely. What do we give this one?
Overall, it's a fun, frenetic action thriller. If you're like that frenetic storytelling or Guy Ritchie films from the past, Lock, Stock, Snatch, even Smoking Aces, this is one for you. I say it's worth seeing at the theaters. 3.5 out of 5, matinee.
Alrighty. So that is Bullet Train with Brad Pitt. And our next conversation
is Scuba and The RY, Do the Movies.
Yeah, this is
what did we both
watched, and that is the new movie Prey that was released on Hulu.
Yes, sir.
Last week. This is the 5th film in the main Predator franchise. Predator vs. Alien is kind of its own little.
It's over here. It's over. Depends who wants to count it, but it's over there. You can enjoy it if you want.
But this is the 5th film in the Predator franchise. It is set in the past. It's supposed to be kind of a prequel.
Yep.
This is like the Predator's first hunt on Earth, and goes up against French fur traders and Native Americans, specifically Comanche, the Comanche tribe, and it's like, what could possibly go wrong?
I don't know, Scuba. What could go wrong, or what could go right in this movie?
I'm going to go with what could go right. This is by far the best film in the franchise.
Yep.
Hands down, this is getting a lot of rave critical reviews. It's got what, a 97 on Rotten Tomatoes as of today.
I'll look it up. You keep on talking.
And but it follows a young woman who wants to prove herself to her tribe that she can hunt. But there's the tribe that she perceives, and through some of the tribe's actions toward her, it's like she's not capable of being a hunter.
Yeah, so the first act is all about setting up the setting and the premise, and it focuses on, like you said, the female warrior. Goes by the name of Naru, played by Amber Midthunder, which is a credence to what they did in this film, but we can talk about.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, but yeah, like you said, the first act, you kind of see the struggles of her. She wants to be a hunter in her tribe, and the film does a great job of building up character and dynamic through the minimalistic of dialogue and a slow burn model. So everything is through observation and watching this tribe and how they live on the Great Plains. And what that does is that it gives you an attachment to the character before it heads into the inevitable interactions with the unknown hunter, and as fans know, the predator.
And you know what? That's actually good, because you see that theme throughout it about observation.
Yeah.
This is really good for the fact Naru observes the predator just as the predator observes who it's hunting. So there's a lot of back and forth. I think that's the beauty of this film, is there is that back and forth between hunter and hunted.
Yeah.
In a variety of things. And you know what? You've got to check this out. If you're definitely do the Hulu for a month, or whatever, and check it out. Granted, there's a lot of other content on Hulu, so I'm not talking down about that, but if you ended your subscription like I did, this is worth the renewal to watch, because it's cheaper than going to see this in the theater. And that's actually something funny, because the director and the producers did this film with the intent of it being a theatrical release. However, its ultimate fate was put on Hulu. But instead of getting because we've all seen it, direct movies that are on streaming services sometimes don't have the same vibe as a theatrical experience.
Yeah. This
film feels like a theatrical experience, yet it's on a streaming service. It's really, really great in that sense. And even though the technology for doing a film like this has definitely come a long way since 1987 with the first Predator film, they kept it minimal. They kept it minimal, and they kept it to where it has a lot of the same vibe as the original Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, it's that simplified approach that it builds up the dynamic of the hunt. And like you said, the hunt and the hunted, it becomes blurred, because you never really know, is she the hunter or the hunted, or is the predator the hunt or hunted? Especially the way they actually add a fragility to the predator because of some interactions with certain things in the environment. I'm not going to say what. You watch it for yourself. But that subtlety helps build up the tension, and then the overall lead into the overall climax. And then what happens to her with the tribe, adds that emotional fervor that is what makes the first Predator so great, is you care about the characters and care about that hunt and survival.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the why I can. It's one of the best in the franchise, up there with the first one, like you said. So
yeah, because this tells a really great story, and let's taking away from the story, let's take a look at the production side of it.
Yeah.
We're talking about they hired they brought on someone who is Comanche.
Yeah.
And she serves as an executive producer and as their cultural advisor. And then they hired actors that are Native American and are Comanche to play these characters. So I think that's definitely reminiscent of the trend we're seeing in Hollywood and film production of, if we're going to talk about a culture, let's get people of that culture and represent and show a representation of the culture with the right people. Because so many things in previous film things, when they try to depict a culture or whatnot, it's always through the lens of the Western view.
Yeah.
You know, it's never really done right. And some great examples of this, Miss Marvel on Disney Plus talks about Pakistani culture from what we were talking about last week. Moon Knight talks about Egyptian and Arab cultures.
Yep.
The trend right now is definitely going more, it's more culturally inclusive, and it adds to the story. Like this really does feel very natural and nuanced with the right character actors playing these roles. So I think that
Yep.
adds to it very well, and it just kind of keeps that dynamic. The
Yeah.
other nice thing is we know the Predator's tech. We've seen it in 4 films. It hasn't changed much.
It
So how do you
changes
do
here.
that? Oh, well,
Yeah, yeah.
how about we scale the Predator back to 300 years? So that was a smart move that they scaled his tech back 300 years.
Yeah, it's still more advanced than what it is where it's taking place, which is 1719. But for
1715.
okay, well I pulled that from okay.
It's 1715 because there's a great Easter egg if you're a fan of the franchise in this film.
Somebody needs to update the wiki page.
Wiki page.
Yeah. So
and your review.
yeah. So yeah, I pulled it from the wiki page. So it's all good. But anyways, Predator, they scaled back the technology, even though it's more advanced. It's not as advanced for their own culture, but it still emphasizes the fact of that it takes a nuance and ingenuity to actually hunt, and you get to see it from both sides, with one side ultimately triumphing.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely great. Production value is good. This is really hitting all the marks. In fact, it was announced today through a couple of different, through at least one site I saw, that looks like they're actually going to explore developing a series. Disney Plus is looking to develop a series for Predator, and it's like that would be very interesting to see, especially because they're talking about trying to target a teen demographic. Which I got to be honest, the first time I think about that, Predator movies are R-rated films. They're gory, they're bloody, they're violent.
Yeah.
Why are we gonna make a series targeted at kids? But then I take a look at it, something like Camp Cretaceous,
And it can work.
and granted, most of the Jurassic Park films are all PG-13, but let's be honest. There are some scenes in those. If they had the R, it would be really bad. But we'll see how this goes. It's in the early. It's like it's in the development stage, meaning they're still ironing out and trying to get an idea and put the stuff in some kind of goal. So probably more on that to come. But the fact that we have our 5th film in the franchise. It revitalized the franchise. It saved the franchise.
It definitely did.
And now it's like, and it's setting new bars in other areas. Like a theatrical experience on a streaming. It's all about the mindset of the way you're doing the production.
Yep.
Also, one of the things I like in this is like, there are some sequences in the movie that if you're a movie aficionado, like this guy over here, you'll see inspirations of other films in this.
Yeah.
One of those I have to say is like, if you can't see a parallel to John Wick in some of the fight choreography, then you need to go back and watch that franchise. Tell me I'm wrong, Rye. Tell me
You're
wrong.
not wrong. It's a lot of craziness that happens, and they find a way to do it in a way that is very great.
Yes, very cool, very great. So yeah. So Rye, you gave this a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 full price. I wish this was released in theaters because it would have been nice to see in a Dolby or IMAX screen, but we got it on Hulu, so that's where you can check it out.
Yeah, I'm solid 4.5. There's very little in this film that I can have an issue with, and I watched it with our friend Penumbra, and he came over. We watched it, and the first question he had to deal with the flintlock pistol at the end, and it's like, you know what? That's something that can explore in a future movie, but interestingly enough, in the comics side, they actually did do the origin of the flintlock in the comics, but this movie kind of resets some of that. So very curious to see what happens next.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, but we'll get there when we get there.
Oh yeah, totally. So all right. That was 3 down, 2 to go.
Yep. So next the movie review is one that you watched on Apple Plus TV called Luck. So take it away.
All right. So we had this came out on Apple TV. It's from Sundance Studios. It's an animated film called Luck. It's got Simon Pegg and I can't remember the girl's name. But Simon Pegg plays
I'll look it up.
Scottish lucky cat. And the protagonist in this story is a woman who is just turned 18. She's out on her own for the first time. And saying she has bad luck is grossly underestimating how bad. I mean, the beauty of some of these sequences to showcase her bad luck makes me think of Rube Goldberg devices. It is I mean, if you wanted to make Final Destination a comedy movie, you turn it into Luck, because it's some of those sequences. Like if you watched Final Destination or you think of Rube Goldberg machines, it's how in the world did you go from slipping on a puddle of water to all of a sudden a carving knife winds up? Kind of deal.
That's kind of crazy.
This is the kind of goofy shenanigans that happens in this film. There's a great sequence kind of early on where it's like she's late, she's trying to get there, so it's like she goes into the bathroom, shuts the door, and it happens to be just enough force that the broom falls down on top of the doorknob, locking her in. So then you see her try to fiddle with it to get it out, and then and it's like one thing after another. And it's like, really? How unlucky are you? Not to borrow a line from the film, but damn. But so she encounters the cat and she gets this lucky penny, and it's no kidding. It makes everything great. And then she loses it. And then she embarks on this adventure through the land of luck and all these different creatures in fantasy that are lucky and unlucky. And it's very I very much like the hero's journey and the coming of age.
Okay, that's good.
She's sitting there and she feels here's where this is a uniqueness that I like about this film, and it's personal to some people who watch it, is the fact that the young lady, she is a foster kid. She grew up in the foster care system in an orphanage. She turned 18. She has to move out. The state has given her an apartment and she's gotten a job and said, "You're doing all right, then they'll cover some of these costs." But she has this young friend who is the same age she was when she was first encountered with disappointment in terms of finding her forever family. So it's all about finding family and finding people you can connect with. And she's such an individual who gives so much more and never really asks for anything. Okay. And to see her, it helps you build this attention to her, and you really care to see what's going on, and then find out how one of the underlying themes in this is talking about, how do I make my station better? Okay. How do I make what I perceive I need to make my life better versus what's right in front of me? Okay. So great supporting cast: Whoopi Goldberg, Jane Fonda, a couple others in there.
Some big names, and the lead character's name's Eva, and played by Sam Greenfield. Okay, and then so it's really great. A lot of even a Pixar alum is in there, but I found it was funny. It was great. I watched it Friday night with Mark Saladin, and it was just one of those. It's like you just can't help but like, what in the world could go wrong next? And okay, this is how we have to come to terms, because that's where I think it's the hero's journey is. You have to come to terms with
who you are.
Dude, does this movie spin the hero's journey in a different way, or does it follow the typical outline with a little bit of color?
There's a little bit of color. You kind of get to the. I would say it's probably fairly traditional in the hero's journey. It has the happy ending that we can see coming. When after we get to a certain point, we can see how it's going to end.
Okay.
The big character reveals that you kind of didn't see coming show up, and then it's the all right. She realizes she's not as bad off as she thinks.
Okay.
And and then everybody kind of comes together and has that. But it's a very cool little kids film. It's probably one of the first, and it's worth a watch if you have the Apple Plus or the TV Plus subscription.
Okay.
Check it out. It's comical, hilarious, but definitely somebody was a fan of Rube Goldberg machines when they dreamed up some of these sequences, because they are a riot.
That sounds good. So how would you rate it? Final rating?
I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5. It's solid.
So
it's definitely not. I mean, it's definitely a kids movie. It doesn't try to address anything too heavy, which I'm glad, and it also doesn't go into a lot of social commentary, which is another positive. But it's just it's predictable, but like a lot of kids movies are predictable. But overall, it's a decent story. So 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, sometimes predictable is okay thing. You can have fun. We've had some of those films this year that we've seen that it goes along that predictable beat, but if you have fun at it, that's all that matters.
Oh yeah, totally.
And add credence to the rating for Prey. It's at 92. So not too far down. Still high.
Yeah, definitely. I think IGN has a listing of all 5 Predator films, best to worst.
I can guess what the worst is, but we can leave that for another day.
Oh yeah, because they include the AVP movies.
Yeah, so I definitely know which one is the worst if they did that.
I think we all do. All do. If you don't know, but feel free to ask. I'm sure someone will tell you what the worst Predator movie of all time is.
Yeah,
including the AVP movies.
Yes. So we'll leave that at that. But now we move from luck into dreams.
Yeah, this is definitely a good shift, and that is we're going to talk about Sandman.
So Scuba and The RY does the TV's presents the latest show on Netflix, a Netflix original adaptation from a DC comic of the same name, The Sandman. So take it away, Scoob. What was your initial thoughts overall of the show?
All right, so let's set this up. Sandman is a DC Comics property.
Yep.
It talks about a group of entities called the Endless, specifically Dream, who's in charge of who's in charge of dreams.
Yep.
Morpheus is his name. But when you go to sleep and your consciousness travels and you have these fantastic go to this fantastical world in your own dreams, he is the one in charge of that realm. So it expands beyond the traditional theology of heaven and hell and whatnot. But the nice thing when this originally came out, I think it was in the 90s.
Yep. I'm looking it up. Just keep on. The Sandman grew out of a proposal by Neil Gaiman to revive DC 1974, 76, so 70s, 80s.
So yeah, 70s and 80s.
Late 80s.
This crossed over with the DC main universe with the superheroes, but it also spun off into a show you really enjoyed, and that is Lucifer.
Yes, I love Lucifer.
The Lucifer comics are a spin-off of Sandman.
Yep.
And not to mention, and if you're a fan of Constantine and the Hellraiser stories, there's a lot of crossover with this as well with Constantine. So it's definitely a darker, a more stylized type of comic and graphic novel, which are really great books. If you get a chance to check them out. But the adaptation of this has taken several iterations to try and get to where we are now.
Yes, it's taken a while.
Yeah, and where we are now, there was one point they were trying to do a film property. But then it was like, no, this would be better as a series. So we did this. So the series comes. It is phenomenally well done.
Yep.
I cannot say enough. IGN gave the series a 9 out of 10. I would have to agree with them.
Yeah,
There's very little I can find wrong with this from a story perspective. Now, granted, I don't know the full comic lore. I don't know all the source material, but the way when you look at this as a medium of television, as a show with, it has a couple of different story arcs in its first season, which is something you don't normally see.
good layering of story and character.
Very well done. It's like when you think it's over, there's
more.
Pull back a layer, and now there's more to work off of. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah,
I will say, I will preface this. There is some subject matter in this that gets a little sketchy.
Yeah, it does touch up on some really crucial things, especially dealing with a lot of specific societal things. But overall, I see this series coming from someone who doesn't know anything about the comics. This is a good a leadway into, you know, what my thing is. It's like, I agree with you. This is probably one of the better shows I've seen in quite some time. It's one of the best first seasons of a new television show, because what this does is that it introduces you to the characters without dumbing it down through over explanation. It allows for the story, conversation, and characters to build over time, over the episodes, into introducing you into the mythos of Dream and the Endless and all the different mythologies that ties into the different entities that the Endless encompasses.
Well, the Endless are supposed to represent the different some different elements of humanity.
Yep.
Dream, desire, despair, death. They're all part of the Endless.
Delirium and destruction are the other two.
Well, one of them is missing.
Yep, which is destruction.
That one is missing for some reason. They don't know. They'll explore later.
Quote unquote. Hopefully we get more shows we can find out.
But it's so each one is supposed to represent a different thing, and of course it has its moments where it does tie into some of the traditional theological stuff for Christianity, meaning heaven and hell, specifically hell, because there's a whole storyline where he goes to see Lucifer Morningstar.
Yes, sir.
Now, I like how in this one, Lucifer is played by a woman.
Yep.
Which, granted, angels were supposed to be agnostic in terms of what sex they are, but normally when we think of someone playing Lucifer, it's always a male actor. It's always a male character. There are very few films. I can think of two instances.
Yeah.
Right now. Number one, obviously this one with God, what's her name? She played Brienne of Tar from Game of Thrones. She played Captain Phasma in the sequel trilogy. Gwendolyn Christie, I want to say.
Yeah, Gwendolyn Christie is her name.
She plays this, and she does a phenomenal job as Lucifer.
Yeah.
Really comes across with some of the character dialogue. And it's interesting. The only other one is an older film with Brendan Fraser, and where Brendan Fraser is a guy who makes a deal with the devil, gets 3 wishes to try and get the love of the woman he's infatuated with, and it's all kinds of shenanigans. It's Bedazzled.
Bedazzled, yeah.
I think that's an older movie. That's a That's a 90s era film.
Yeah.
But that's the only other thing the only instance I can remember seeing a Lucifer or the devil played as a female actor.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's always a male actor. Granted, the Lucifer Morningstar in the show Lucifer, he's really great.
Yeah, he does a great job at that. But coming back to Sandman, the show just it layers you within a world where it's believable in the fanatical, and at the same time, it has multiple tonal shift because each episode feels like its own standalone, like its own
Yeah, they
piece.
were saying that in some of the behind the scenes stuff is like each episode stands alone, but it does connect.
Yeah.
And you get a couple of different stories.
Yeah.
And the reimagining of certain characters. Plus, shout out for the supporting cast on this.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we got actors from Game of Thrones, we've got actors from Harry Potter, we've got actors from a lot of really great
Like one standout is Boyd Holbrook as the Corinthian. So
yes.
yeah, but like you said, it does a great job. It feels like an anthology, but with an overall connective tissue. So it's serialized and episodic at the same time, and that's an testament that not only the source material, but the way that they were able to adapt it for the big screen or the small screen, if you want to say, and leave enough to where this is one thing that I praise the show for, and praise a lot of great shows that do this. They do something where they encompasses the first season in its own entity, its own entirety, but enough to where, okay, there can be more adventures for character A, character B, character C. And that's a definition of a great show overall. When you can define what the purpose is of your season, your beginning, middle, and end, add in a lot of girth that actually represents some importance to the overall mythos, but also have a satisfying outcome of, okay, I've done this, what is the consequence of doing this, and then also what's the completion of it, with a little bit of what may come next. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it.
It's 11 episodes long.
10.
10 plus 1.
What's the, you sure it's 11? Because
One, it was 11.
okay, I'm gonna look it up. Thought it was 10, but anyways.
It is really great watch. It's set. It sets up. Can't wait to see what happens in season 2. Season 2 is already in pre-production. It just hasn't been officially greenlit. But considering how popular this is right now, I personally don't foresee it not happening.
Yeah, I see it getting greenlit. So, yep, 10, 11 episodes. The last one is Lost Hearts. Does end with an interesting, not twist, but interesting what will happen next.
Very much so. So, yeah, Sandman, Netflix.
Check it out.
Worth it. I'm solid 4. I'd say it's a solid 5 out of 5 for me. I cannot think of a better set of TV.
Yep.
And it's just the story is it hooks you and draws you in, and you want to see what happens.
Yep.
Very much a binge show.
Binge style show. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. It definitely worth the watch.
Yep. Totally. Alrighty.
All right.
Oh. Wow, we just fired through 5 reviews. We don't do that very often, but
no.
man.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. Sometimes a lot of stuff drops in one weekend, but hey, it's all good.
Alrighty. So what do we want to tackle next? I'm kind of curious about the Gray Man dilemma.
Yep.
We can talk through that and then hit our odds and ends. And of course, we can't go without talking about all the shenanigans happening at WB Discovery. That stuff is just going on forever.
Yep. New ownership, a little shakiness, but hopefully good things. But speaking of Netflix and streaming, as great as the Sandman is, and great as some of the stuff that they have on there, Stranger Things, Umbrella Academy, The Irishman from past, even originals that started it off with House of Cards and Orange is the New Black, they do have a certain dilemma and a troubling kind of trend that seems to be happening over the last, let's say, 2 years, a couple of years. So an article dropped over on Screen Rant that highlights one of their recent releases on the streaming service, which is The Gray Man. The Gray Man was one of their highlights, or one of their big highlights that they highlighted that was coming out this year. One that I was looking forward to, not only because it was the Russo brothers directing it, but it has one of my man crushes of an actor in the film, Ryan Gosling, and it was an action-oriented spy thriller kind of film. Not going to go over my review. I can just tell you I didn't really like it. You can check it out on riderreviews.com for reading it.
People didn't like
but
it. Apparently this really fell flat on its face.
Yeah, it's a hit and miss. It's right around 50%, so half people liked it, half people not. But it's not as much of the appeal, but what the cost and what the trend of this movie is highlighting for the Netflix streaming service.
Yeah, and the fact that we know this is not getting a lot of positive critical review.
Yeah.
Netflix has already greenlit a spin-off series for this.
Yep, spin-off series and sequels.
And they're trying to build this franchise.
Yeah.
And it's like, the movie wasn't that good.
Yep.
But, and this, as we're going with this article and some of the, and whatnot, it's like, let's talk about how Netflix is painting themselves into a corner.
Yeah, there's multiple fronts that they're painting themselves in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
By greenlighting, multiple stuff within the series. Granted, they've done that with a few other properties, but this one in particular, it cost them over $200 million approximate to create this.
Yeah. And I'm
big
sure
bang for the buck.
Part of that is going to the paychecks of Ryan of their cast, and this is the thing. Gray Man, Red Notice,
Adam Project.
It's like we're talking films that have recognizable A-list actors.
The Irishman, another one. Martin Scorsese with Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and dang it.
It'd be nice if those were one-offs, but where is their original content with? Because here's the thing. When you go to watch a film in a theater, when like Warner Brothers, MGM, all them make movies, sometimes they will cast an actor we've never heard of. And all of a sudden, and then that actor will become big.
Yeah, example, one that we both liked from a few years ago, Knives Out. Name one. It has recognizable names, but a lot of unknowns.
You sure about that?
Yeah, it has some recognizable names, but a lot of unknowns that were in the supporting cast that became big afterwards.
Okay.
Yep.
But I was thinking like, it's maybe the first time we see Ryan Gosling in a film.
Yep.
Let's talk about some of those ones where it's like Gerard Butler. The first couple of films, you had no idea who he was, and all of a sudden he got bigger and bigger and bigger.
300.
300 was definitely one that put him up there.
Yeah.
But one of his first films was Dracula 2000.
Never watched that one.
Wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Wes Craven film, one of his last ones. But the point is when you go to a theatrical show and you watch these actors then become big, and then they draw the audience in. Netflix seems to be relying on the actors that can draw the audience in, but aren't giving them a story, and they're not developing new properties with unknowns to get unknowns to become prominent actors.
Yeah, so this ties back into, having those big names means it costs big paychecks. So Red Notice was a big, I don't have the numbers, but it cost them extensively. I know all three actors got like 15 or 20 million a piece for Red Notice. Another one, which we both kind of liked, the Sea Beast. They had to use the name recognition of the producers from Moana worked on this. Not only the voice actor of Karl Urban and one of the leads to acknowledge, hey, this is, come check it out. Granted, the movie was great.
The movie was great. Animated films getting A-list actors in them is always the thing. It's when we get to the live action films, and it's one thing if you have an A-list actor or a big name actor, but have them opposite somebody who's up and coming to help get them over. Yeah. So in the public to see, okay, I went and I saw this for Ryan Reynolds, but I really like who he's with, who I'm not familiar with. I want to see what they did really good in this role. I want to see what they do next. And that's just an example. Yeah.
So, it's that crossroads dilemma that they're on shaky ground because, we've heard, they've been in news for losing stuff here and there, subscribers, money, but that's typical of companies, money comes. But it's just this dilemma where they can't build their own stars within their own ecosystem, which goes back to a lot of the fact that they brought in a lot of people because of the curated content. Mm-hmm. And like we've had the conversation before the podcast, how even though they have done great on building their original stuff and pulling in content from foreign media, it's still not what's bringing people in. It's stuff like this, The Gray Man, Red Notice, Adam Project, The Irishman that are bringing people in, which goes back to the issue, money, and big name actors. Yeah. Not to mention the third wild card is competition, buying for streaming competition, because like you mentioned, a good example, you have Prey on Hulu, You have Luck on Apple TV. Both were not only, presented and built for streaming, but they were great. So, vying for that competition, they're going to lose out on that, and it's slowly going to decay over time.
Which I mean, let's be real. This is how business works in the end.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about this months ago. You go to Cracker Barrel and you take a look at the walls on Cracker Barrel.
Yep.
You see all the different company logos and company products, and you go and you realize that none of them are around anymore.
Yeah, pretty much. 99%.
Let's give Netflix its due. It was the first one to come onto the scene.
Number one.
It dominated for the better part of 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years, 10 years, always in the positive.
So now it's starting to wane as everybody else gets on board, and hopefully, and we'll see what they do going forward. But if they're going to keep relying on A-listers and big names, recognizable names, they're keep relying on recognizable names to draw people in to watch content that really isn't any good. Eventually, you're going to run out.
Yep. So, like example, I know I'm going back to, they hired and got Martin Scorsese to do The Irishman on Netflix, but he's not solely doing stuff on Netflix. His next big project is going to be something of the Killer Moon, which is going to be on Apple. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of that, name recognition.
Yep.
Amazon Prime is going to have the new Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power.
Add note, I'm looking forward to it, people.
I'm totally doing that too.
Yeah.
I was telling a friend of mine who I know he's a big Lord of the Rings fan because his lock screen is a meme with Aragorn from Return of the King about coffee.
Oh yeah.
And he's a D&D nerd, so we all have an appreciation for Lord of the Rings. But do you know anything about? When you look at the cast list for that, is there anybody in there that's jumping out?
Nada.
Yet, pretty sure that series is going to go over big.
Yep, it's going to go over big, and
that's something that Amazon is doing. They're making a property. They're doing a project.
Yeah,
they're not worried about who's attached to it. They know that their quality of output is going to be what justifies.
And to add even more credence to that, with your argument showing, let's go over to another streaming service that's going to have 2 shows coming out in the near future. Disney Plus. You have She-Hulk at the end of this month, and then Andor at the end of September. Yes, there's a couple names that are recognizable, but for the most part, it's mostly smaller actresses that the majority of the people that watch don't know about.
Oh yeah, well let's carry that forward and look at the fact that Disney Plus has got a corner they're painting themselves into.
Yeah,
and we've got and it'll be a few years before some of their plans come to fruition, but we were talking about this at dinner.
Yeah.
You go to watch the TV content. What's the predominant theme of the TV content, or the straight to the streaming, the Disney Plus original shows?
Yeah. Outside of its back catalog, what's been new has been Marvel or Star Wars.
So they know they have to come up with more content to draw people in. So they've greenlit Spiderwick Chronicles. There was an announcement a couple weeks ago that Aragon, the Inheritance story is coming. Percy Jackson series is coming. So they're branching out.
Yep. And not to mention the Willow sequel.
Well, the Willow series coming out.
Yeah.
But the other, we've seen Willow. We've seen the cat. We've seen Willow's coming sooner, but these other 3 are still in various stages of development.
Yeah. So they're planning ahead
before we'll see them.
They're definitely planning ahead, and not to mention what props up Disney Plus. It depends on your market. Is like it's bundled in America with Hulu. Outside of America, it's what they call Star, which is part of the built-in program. So they're trying to curate more stuff outside of the known models.
Yeah, so I mean, glad they're branching out.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Speaking of branching out, let's shift over to the big merger between Warner Brothers, HBO Max, and Discovery Plus.
Yes, sir. So As you know, AT&T sold off their Warner Brothers section off to Discovery Plus, which is run by David Zaslav, and the deal was finalized back in April of this year. And they had their earnings call a few days ago, and what everybody thought was going to happen eventually is going to happen. They're going to merge the HBO Max platform and the Disney Plus together into one, and it
Discovery
should
Plus.
Discovery. Thank you. My mind's all over here.
It's the 2 D's.
Yeah, D's. I don't know. Desire, despair. But Discovery Plus and HBO Max are going to merge in early as summer 2023, 2024. So what's going to happen, which it makes sense, they're going to bring everything under one platform with all their curated material in one area eventually.
That might be messy.
It might be a little bit messy, but they're giving themselves enough time to build it out. But also with the messiness comes, with a lot of oversight, with a lot of the cross platforming of certain things, and with that, it costs people some jobs, some programming mismatch, some being propped up even higher, some being left to the wayside. So in the earnings call, they also propped up what are their major franchises, what they're going to focus on, which a lot of people know. You have the Discovery wing of all the episodes that are popular. You have HBO's Prime stuff, like Game of Thrones and whatnot. They propped up the fact that they're going to focus on Harry Potter, but the one thing that they did say they're going to definitely focus on is DC.
Yeah, they're going to focus on DC, and they already have. I mean, Batgirl was killed, a couple other projects were killed, and they're restructuring the whole thing. And one of the announcements that came out is they are looking for their version of Kevin Feige, and they're looking to do a 10-year plan for the DC films, a lot like how Marvel is always looking at a 10-year plan for their films. So
yeah, they're looking for somebody that has that note, and he went out, Zaslav went out, they got a consultant, a real good consultant who left Disney not too long ago, Alan Horn, who is one of the big influencers on the WB staff right now, to figure out that head, and also focused on quality over quantity. So instead of just shooting out all the different kind of versions of Batmans and all the different heroes, they're going to focus on quality over quantity, and making Superman one of the main focuses of the next 10 years to build out this DC universe. So, which they've tried a lot with Superman, and I think it's just because they had so many heads in the kitchen that they couldn't figure out how to bring him in, not to mention all the Justice League hoopla. But even with some of the negatives, I think this is a positive, because they're trying to get through all the kinks.
Yeah, especially if it's all right. Let's take a look at what's on the production slot and see, okay, where's our return on investment for these things? And let's cut some projects now before we get too much further, and kind of write things up. Because to be fair, it's like, it's a huge amount of content. Like, there's some stories about they've quietly removed content from HBO Max.
Yep.
And they're going to be trimming down a lot of content there.
Yep.
To the point that some analysts are speculating that if Warner Brothers isn't careful, they're going to end up killing what makes HBO.
Yep. So a lot of stuff that they've been pulling a lot of stuff off HBO Max, which was HBO Max focus and HBO Max originals, not the HBO properties. And that's where a lot of confusion comes in from the consumer perspective, is that not everything that HBO Max is HBO, and not everything that HBO is HBO Max. Granted, everything that shows up on HBO Max, but there is Max original stuff that they've been pulling off. Just to mention one thing that they pulled off is American Pickle, which was a Seth Rogen movie. And they pulled off 6 or 7 projects because they were just losing money, just holding them there on the service, because they had to pay out rights to other productions that were outside Warner Brothers that worked on that. So
that's fair.
But yeah, so there's a lot of condensing of things, but hopefully it'll come out positive in the long run, because the previous owners really didn't know what to do. So yeah.
So we will see. Stay tuned. We'll commentate on that as we know more.
Yep, streaming is the frontier, and we'll be ahead of the game and report it to you people as we see it.
Yeah. Alrighty. Oh man, so much stuff we talked about.
Yep, let's end on some happy, funny things.
Sure. Let's hit those odds and ends.
Oddies and endies, people. What we got first? Are we sipping on something?
How about we get paid to eat candy?
Okay, I think I want to do that. Let's go get paid.
Tell me how I can get paid to eat candy.
Well,
I'm a big kid. I don't need to get paid to eat candy. But, somebody out there might want to get paid to eat candy.
I want to. But anyways, if you want to find out how you can pay to eat candy, you can go over to a Canadian company where you can become a Canadian company's chief candy officer. So, as reported in the NPR article, Canada's Candy Funhouse is hiring, quote, a chief candy officer, according to a job posting on their website. So they say that, do you love all things candy and chocolate? Do you, Scuba? Do you?
In moderation.
Okay.
Are you passionate about confectionery treats and exploring the unreleased and existing products?
Maybe. What else do we got?
Perfect position for you.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because they're willing to pay 100,000 Canadian annually for you to have this job.
Yeah, which translates over to 78K plus US dollars annually. So, yeah. I think if I got paid to do that, you can go and do some candy. And they say that applicants can be, quote, as young as 5 years old, but must reside in North America. So that means that there's plenty of countries in North America you could be living in and still get this job.
Yep.
Yeah, you can move down to Puerto Rico and get this job. So,
all you got to do is eat candy all the time. Okay.
Yes, sir. Let's eat it. But what else are we going to be doing?
Well, we can't eat candy without having a drink. So let's take a drink with another story about an official bourbon that in celebration of the anniversary of Assassin's Creed from Ubisoft. Okay.
So, as reported in Whiskey Wash website, Assassin's Creed, which everybody in the video game world, even maybe people that aren't familiar with video games, recognize Assassin's Creed. It's a very popular franchise. It's been over 15 years, created by Ubisoft. So to celebrate this, quote, the company has teamed up with a licensing bottle and distribution company to release an official bourbon for their 15th year. So, according to those behind it, it's been brought to the market by Anthem Studios.
Rye spice with a wheat character and with hints of cherry, vanilla, and oak.
That sounds good.
I might actually buy a bottle of this just for just to give it a shot.
I might buy a bottle for my dad because he's the bourbon collector and he might be able to tell me if it's yay or nah.
Come on, you got to try it yourself.
Okay, I will. I'll try it.
So while we're sitting there going from our candy executive meetings to having a whiskey nightcap, we have to worry about home safety.
Yes, you got to be protected.
Let's wrap this up with a guard cat saves the day.
Yeah, guard cat saves the day, as reported through our local affiliate, Wavy. Mississippi man said he was saved by his pet cat, who helped prevent a robbery at his own home.
I heard about this.
Yep. So Bandit, quote, a 20-pound cat lives with her retired owner, Fred Everett, in Tupelo suburb of Belden in Mississippi. So he said that just to summarize the article, it was around 2:30, 3 a.m. and then the cat came and kind of pretty much warned him about somebody in the house.
So somebody attempting to break in.
Yeah.
The cat came and was scratching and making a lot of ruckus, and was enough to scare off and wake him up and scare off the would-be robbers.
So he got up and got it out, and quote, Everett said by the time he retrieved the handgun and returned to the kitchen, the would-be intruders had already fled.
So yeah, gotta be thankful for those animals that protect us.
Yes, and you got plenty of them cats around here, so you're well protected. I say you're well protected. What do you say there, cat? She says, yes.
Oh, well, hey, that is odds and ends, and that is going to wrap us up. That's hilarious.
Yes.
Oh, what do we got on the docket this weekend? I think we got a anime convention to go to,
Yep.
and a summer Aloha Fest, and
Yep, I'm going with Superstar Anime, which is the annual anime convention here in Hampton Roads. And a few other things that I'm doing. A comedy show, concert, Aloha. So it's going to be a busy weekend, but I'll talk about more next week, people.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you everybody for checking us out, sticking with us. Hope we'll see you again on our next episode. Again, a shout out to Sirenscape for background music.
Thank
and
you.
Soundboards. Check them out, sirenscape.com. If you want to support this, excuse me. If you want to support the studio, best you can do that is to give us a like, a follow, a review, all of those things. Click on the thumbs up. Give us a couple of stars. Give us a review. Tell us how we're doing. Leave a comment. Reach out to us. Suggestions. All those fun things. And if you want to do more, you can totally do that. Head over to patreon.com/scuba studio, where you can check out our Patreon and consider joining a Patreon. With sometimes post updates and whatnot there. But it's up to you. We enjoy doing this. We're gonna keep doing this. If you want to support us and help us grow and expand, that is great. If not, continue to enjoy this content. Like I said, share it, like it, give us a review, and we'll keep on charging. So yeah. Oh, right. I got my custom URL for YouTube. It's now youtube.com/Scuba's Studio.
Check us out, people. Subscribe.
Alrighty. Until then, y'all stay safe, have a good time, and we will see you all next week. Good night, everybody.
Peace.